I was the one that doled out the punishment at our house. Bob told me when Karen was just little, he said, a man's hand is too hard. There's no way he can touch a kid with it like that, you know, or correct a kid with his hand. So I believed everything Bob told me. Everything he said was the gospel to me. I always thought he was the smartest man. And he had been around and done everything, so I figured he knew what he was talking about. So I don't, it was any punishment coming, I'm the one that doled it out. And Kathy would get even with me, or Karen would get even with me when her dad was home, and she'd crawl up on his lap and she'd tell him, well, she was only 3 or 4 years old. She said, Mom, she had nails was gonna push in my eyes, and she was doing all kind of things to me today, and Bob would just raise Cain with me that I should not treat her like that. And she would look at me and just grin. She was getting even for the time she got in trouble.
Was Bob, so you disciplined, was Bob ever harsh or raised his voice?
Never raised his voice, never touched the kids, never corrected or got after him. Well, a few times, but it's just such a voice that, and you know, they broke their necks to please him. They never wanted to disappoint him. They begged me if they brought a paper home from school that wasn't just so, please don't show it to Dad. And I didn't. But I was always the one to dole out the punishment. Well, after a while, I got a little tired of it, being the only one to correct them, you know. And so one evening, I can't remember if they were quarreling, because when they quarreled with each other, Bob didn't get after them. He just made them sit in the big chair together and hold hands. And Kathy loved it, but Karen didn't want any part of that. She didn't like that. So they were very careful about quarreling with each other. And Karen was coming, she was about 13, I guess. Kathy 6. And Bob said, you know, Karen keeps a good eye on her when they're away from us, if they're outside or somewhere. And I think it's time that she can start correcting Kathy now on her own. So Bob called them both in and told them, he said, Karen's gonna start. If you need corrected, Kathy, and your mama and I are not around, it'll be all right for Karen to correct you, and you should listen to her. And if not, then Karen has the authority to give you a smack on the behind. And he said to Karen, and you remember, Karen, she has a behind on her. She's not to be hit anywhere else. He said, and pull your punches because you're a lot bigger than she is. So they went outside, and it wasn't a half hour, and Kathy came in and she said, Dad, Karen's out there hitting me and she isn't pulling her punches. So Karen came in and I said, what's going on out there? And she said, you better get a hold of Kathleen, Mom. She said, she's a cousin. And I said, she is. And I said, but Kathy, what did you say? She said, I wasn't cussing, Mom. And I said, well, what did you say? And she said, Karen said she called me an asshole. And I said, Kathy, did you say that? And she said, no, I didn't. She said, I said she was an ASSHOLE, but I didn't call her that. And then there was another time when Karen said, she's cussing again, Mom. And I said, what'd she say this time? And she said she called me a bastardly girl. And I said, Kathy, did you say that? And she said, no. She said, yes, I said that. She said, but that's not cussing, Mom. Batman says it all the time. I said, no, honey, Batman says dastardly. Oh, she said, okay, that's what I'll call her from now on. Then I remember one time the girls were quarreling and I sent them both up to bed. It was early in the evening, but I wasn't going to listen to them. And on the way up, they had stood right there beside Bob, and he never said a word. And I must have just been beyond my limit or something, because I started crying and I said to Bob, why don't you help me correct these girls? And about that time, both kids came back down the steps, and one of them stood on each side of me, and the tears were just rolling down their face, and they said, Dad, why don't you help her correct us? So he said, all right, from now on I will. He never did. Never did. One time he got up he was in the living room, he got up and his back was stiff, and they called him an old crooked stick and something else. So when he went back in the living room, he had the fly swatter, cracked each one of them. That was the only time that the kids he didn't do it. They didn't even know he did it. But that was his limit. He called me, he said, I cannot smack those kids. He said, they're normal, smart kids, so I can talk to them. And that's what he did. And they listened.